So if you watch our videos, you're going to be very aware that we are not big fans of annuities. We don't like the way they're sold. We don't like the people who promote them for commissions and then claim that they are fiduciaries. You can't be a fiduciary when you get paid up front. Annuities are complicated. We don't think they're good investments. I had the opportunity to sit down with an individual that was being sold an annuity and actually met with the person that was trying to sell them an annuity at an IHOP. It's a great story, phenomenal meeting. Can't wait to tell you about it. A few weeks ago, and that depends on when you're watching our video, but for me, it's a few weeks ago, I was speaking with Cheryl, and she's in a situation. She's currently single. She's got some money set aside, and she has been online and seen some stuff on TV, even listening to the radio. She got herself in a situation where several, but one in particular, sales representative or financial advisor is claiming to be a financial advisor. At the end of the day, they're really just an insurance salesperson. There's a difference between insurance sales and financial advisor, but I don't want to get into the weeds there. But this individual has been, let's just call it a hard sale. And I don't know anybody who likes that, but let's just say he's pestering her on all of the reasons why she should take the money from where it is currently right now and move it into the annuity that he is proposing so that she can get stock market participation, no risk of loss, so she can get guaranteed income for life, so she can, for all of the reasons that he's set forth. And I know if you've seen these annuity presentations, they're hitting certain buttons, but basically he's presented it as the greatest thing since sliced bread. And if she just moves her money over there, she's never going to have to worry about anything for the rest of her life. And to her, and I think a lot of people that are in that situation, you still see the same thing. Well, how could that happen? How could I get stock market participation, no risk of loss? What's the catch? How could I get guaranteed income for life with no risk? What's the catch? It's all of the too good to be true stuff. But Cheryl was in a situation where she reached out to us, and I was lucky enough to have a conversation with her. We started talking, and she asked me if I would be willing to sit down with her at the meeting that she was going to have with this individual when he tried to convince her to sign the paperwork to get into this annuity account. Right away, I wanted to be there, but I had to make sure it would work with my calendar. It worked with my calendar, so I'm just so thrilled that it worked out and we got to sit down. Basically, the way that it went down was we agreed to meet at an IHOP, and which is fine. It was convenient for her. I guess it was convenient for this other advisor. So Cheryl and I got there, ordered some coffee, sat down on one side of the table. The advisor showed up and sat down on the other side of the table. He asked me who I was. I said, well, he goes, hey, who are you? I said, well, I'm Mike. I don't think he knows that we do these videos or have a radio show around the country and stuff like that. But I said, I'm Mike. He goes, Mike, what do you do? I said, well, I'm an investment advisor. I manage assets for clients, basically for a living. But I'm friends with Cheryl, and she asked me to be here today. And he said, okay, well, great. I'm so happy you're here. I don't think he was really happy that I was there, but of course, he's got a job to do, and he's got a product and he wants to sell it. So we sat down right away. The computer came out on the table there at the IHOP, and all kinds of printouts that are all, there's just charts and color stuff and everything else. Now I've seen all of this stuff before because again, I've been doing this for over 25 years now. Basically the presentation usually goes something like this. It's all of the things that you need to be afraid of and all of the things that are supposed to impact your retirement in a very, very negative way. And then I think the presentation might have been 20 pages. 5 pages of it were actual numbers and statistics. The rest of it was all the reasons that you should be scared and protect your money and guarantee yourself lifetime income and just rely on an insurance company to provide that to you. We just thumbed through the pages. Cheryl had a lot of questions. I felt kind of bad in the conversation because he was very focused on me and he needed to be focused on her. But basically I had inserted myself, or Cheryl had inserted me in the conversation. So now he feels like he has to convince me along with her, which of course he wasn't going to do because, as we've already stated, I'm not a big fan of the annuities. But I think what's really, really interesting about this meeting and what we went through was all of the sales tactics that were being used, because I know individuals are out there right now, retired or close to it, and these same sales tactics are being used on them to try to convince people to move into these annuity products. And what we try to encourage people to do is understand the details. I think Cheryl's biggest issue, and it would be a lot of people's issue, is it's not that she's not a successful, smart woman who's capable of making decisions on her own. That's not it at all. The issue is the contracts when it comes to these annuities and the language that is used in the annuities. And she just did not know the right questions to ask. And the advisor wasn't going to tell her the right questions to ask. All he was going to tell her was, if you do this and put your money in this account, you'll be guaranteed this much money for the rest of your life. And that's a huge oversimplification of how the annuities work. So what I did in the conversation, and I did it in a very nice way, I just said, hey, listen, I understand that this annuity will provide this much guaranteed income every year for the rest of Cheryl's life. I understand that the insurance company that the money would go to is a solid insurance company. When it comes to these guarantees, the guarantees are based on the claims paying ability of the insurance company, so that's important. It was a reputable insurance company. I didn't have a problem with that. One thing I had a really big problem with was he spent zero time talking about her principal in her investment. He just wanted to focus on, you can't lose money if the stock market goes down, and you're guaranteed this income. So I brought him back to, well, let's have a conversation about what actually happens to Cheryl's principal investment over time. And so he flipped to that page in the illustration. He said, well, hey, it's right here. It's invested in the stock market. So that's the first part that was untruthful on his part, because in this case, it was what's called a fixed indexed annuity. And a fixed indexed annuity does not invest directly in the stock market. But he was implying that it is, and that's kind of how these annuities get promoted, the fixed index annuities. And so I had to call him out on it. I said, hey, listen, it's my understanding of the fixed index annuity is that it is not invested directly in the stock market, but that you choose an index and then you can participate in gains over time. And so he backed up a little bit. He said, okay, yeah, you're right. It's not a direct investment in the market with no risk. And then I asked him, based on your analysis here, right, or the presentation and basically illustration, so I had an illustration from the insurance company, what could she expect to make on her money? And so he referred back to the index that it would be invested in. And then he was very proud to say that, well, it's going to be in this index, meaning index to the stock market, and she's going to get 120% of what that index does. And so what that means, not everybody understands, but if I was invested in the S&P, I would assume, just in the stock market, if I invested in the S&P 500, I would assume that if the market is up, I get 100% of that gain. And if the market's down, I get 100% of that loss. I think that's how most people understand investments. When it comes to this indexing, the insurance company has stated in the illustration that Cheryl will get 120%, whatever the index, it wasn't the S&P, but whatever the index does. So he was very proud to say, well, she will get 120% of the index's performance. Another way to put that would be, if that index was up 10%, she would get 120% of 10% or 12% on her investment. So I asked him, and I knew the answer to the question already, but I asked him, I said, so is that 120% of that index into perpetuity? And he goes, oh yeah, it is. And I said, well, I'm sorry, hold on just a second. My understanding of how this works is that is not locked in. And he said, well, let me check for you. And he's obviously talking to Cheryl and I. And so then he goes in and he calls somebody up on the phone right there at the table at the IHOP, and they don't answer. He said, well, I'll get that information for you. And we went through, we kept talking about all the reasons why Cheryl should, I guess, in his opinion, move into this annuity. And the phone never rang. He never got a call back from the person he was trying to get the data from. And this is really, really important information. I picked up my phone and I called somebody that I know that can get me information on these annuity contracts. Doesn't matter what annuity it is. Again, we don't promote them, but I can still get the information or the data. And so I called up. My friend Brent answered right away. And I said, hey, listen, I'm sitting here at the table with Cheryl and this advisor, and we've got a question about this annuity contract, and I just need to know what is the current participation rate on the index. Turns out it wasn't 120%, it was actually 115%. I mean, I know that's small numbers, but his data was inaccurate because he was providing illustrations to her that were 2 months old. So right away it wasn't accurate. But more importantly, the question was, that people don't know the question to ask, which is how we can help people in this situation. I said, what is the minimum participation rate? In other words, what can the insurance company do over the lifetime of the contract that you've signed? Again, these are long-term contracts, and if you're getting lifetime income, probably a lifetime contract. What could they lower that participation rate to? And in this example, on that particular index was 20 basis points, which equates to 0.2%. As opposed to 1.2 or 120 basis points. So in other words, 20% versus 120%. Another way to put that is if the index was up 10%, instead of getting 12, if it was 120% participation rate, she would actually get 2%. This is information that he did not want to disclose, because if you know that about a long-term contract and how your principal is likely to be affected long-term, what are the chances you're going to close that deal and get your big commission on a fixed indexed annuity if you told somebody, well, currently it's 120% participation rate, but the insurance company, if they decide to, for any reason, and again, they can't do it at any moment, but they could do it on the basically contract anniversary in this case after 1 year. What if they decided to drop it to 0.2? Well, suddenly his numbers are nowhere near what he was projecting they would be. The projections were based on 120% participation rate, which I said were already wrong. But if they dropped it to a 20% participation rate, all of his numbers are wrong. And so what people need to understand about these contracts is they are written in a way, yes, they can provide you guaranteed income for life, as long as the insurance company is still in business 10, 20, 30, 40 years from now. The principal investment is what I think we should be more focused on, and how is your money treated? Because if I want income for life, I don't need to go to an IHOP and sit down with a salesperson and comes in full suit and tie and a briefcase, and I don't need all these spreadsheets and everything else for somebody to tell me, hey, you're guaranteed income for life no matter what. I could literally, depending on my life expectancy, just go park my money somewhere at 3 or 4%. I could earn that 3 or 4%, pull money out of my own account for the rest of my life, still never run out of money, and have it liquid. So where is the benefit to these annuities that people like this gentleman was trying to promote to Cheryl, who's a very intelligent woman and successful in her own right? She just doesn't know the right questions to ask when it comes to these annuity contracts, and it was confusing for her. So I was glad I got to sit down. It's really, really important. So understand, if somebody is promoting, whether it's an annuity or any other financial investment, I think the biggest thing you need to do is educate yourself on the right questions to ask. Because if you don't know what to ask, you don't know what you don't know. And in Cheryl's case, had she moved into this annuity contract, she would not have realized that her payout, although guaranteed by a reputable company, was actually diluting her principal investment. And to me, that's not actually income. It's only income to me if I'm spending what I'm making. If you're just handing me back my own money, to me, that's not technically income. And you got to be very, very careful when it comes to investing in anything, but especially the annuity contracts, because they're very confusing. So now you're wondering, how did this meeting at the IHOP end with me and Cheryl, and I won't mention his name, the advisor, but he also brought an assistant as well, who's taking notes the whole time. Unfortunately, it probably wasn't his best representation if he was trying to impress her. Basically, the way that it ended, I had allocated about an hour and a half to be able to do this because I had to get on. I actually had a full disclosure, at a client event about 2 hours away. So very politely, I thanked him for his time, told Cheryl and the rest of the table that I need to move on to my next meeting. And then I just invited him to give me a call if he has any questions about annuities. And I let Cheryl know that I would be available to her if she needs anything. He wasn't super thrilled. I have talked to Cheryl since then, and shockingly, she's decided not to work with that particular person. I think that experience, I wanted to share it because that's just one example of experiences that are going on around the country all the time for people like Cheryl, or people that are, similar situation, retired assets. The presentations are often inaccurate when it comes to these fixed indexed annuities. The promises are often overstated when it comes to the fixed indexed annuities. It's a product that pays big commissions. I think the average commission is somewhere around 7%. If I'm trying to sell my house and a real estate person wants, 6 or 7%, I mean, that's a big commission. It's a big number. You can see why they're incentivized to do it. I think it invites this type of, honestly, it's fraudulent for this individual to walk into an IHOP, sit down, do an entire presentation where the numbers aren't even accurate. He literally told her that when she asked questions, he said, well, just sign here, move your money over, then you can read the contract that you get, and then you'll have all of the facts. That I called him out on that. That makes no sense whatsoever, because there's something called a statement of understanding when it comes to the fixed index annuities. You can get all of the information before you sign. I mean, this is state law in basically every single state. It was all of that, and then just to share a piece that just made it even more ridiculous. At one point in the conversation, when it wasn't really going his way, he leans across the table and goes, "Mike, are you a Christian?" I'm like, what is the answer is yes. But what if I wasn't? You know, what difference does it make? I mean, you're having a conversation with somebody about their life savings, and somehow my religious affiliation should have Cheryl. It's absolutely ridiculous. So if you're ever in that situation, and again, if you ever need help and you're just looking for an advocate to help you ask the right questions, feel free to reach out. Every day, somewhere in America, somebody's in someone's office, somebody's at an IHOP, or maybe it's a Waffle House, or just somewhere, and some advisor is promoting a fixed indexed annuity in a dishonest way. Now, I'm not saying everybody does it dishonestly. The problem is, if you're honest about how fixed indexed annuities work, chances of selling somebody that annuity and actually getting the commission and then getting the free trip to wherever, that particular year, is severely diminished. So if I tell somebody that they're going to get 120% of what the index does and they can never lose money and they get income for life, they're like, well, that sounds pretty good. Where do I sign? If we get into that a little bit and go, oh, well, the guaranteed income for life, by the way, that's based on the insurance company being around for the rest of your life, because it's the claims paying ability of the insurance company. Or if we get into, that 120% participation of the index, by the way, that's not guaranteed. The insurance company reserves the right to lower that to 20% of the index. If you start getting into what happens to my principal over time, nobody can answer that actual question. But the reality is it goes down over time. So what the insurance companies are doing, and nothing against the insurance companies, plenty of great insurance companies out there. I mean, they are in business to make money. You can't make money giving people 100% of whatever the stock market does, whatever index you're in, with 0% risk to the market. That doesn't make sense. Just take it back to, well, if I could invest in the market and get all the gains without any of the losses, why isn't everybody doing it? Right? It's a very simple question. Why wouldn't everybody do this? The reality is they wouldn't do it because that's not how it works. And the proof is in the contract. The contract's extremely difficult to read. And that's where these advisors that are promoting these products that we don't believe are good investment products. An investment, by definition, is something that you put money into in order to make money. This particular type of an annuity, the fixed index annuity, they're implying that it's an investment. It's not an investment. It's an insurance product. It's literally the opposite of life insurance. Where do annuities come from? Life insurance companies. So if you go buy life insurance, the life insurance company wants to collect as many premiums, meaning, the cost of the insurance. So whatever you have to pay for that life insurance on a monthly basis or annual basis, they want to collect as much of that as possible over time before you pass away. And the risk to them is you pass away early. That's the point of life insurance, but they spread that risk over, thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of clients. And that's the way they're able to afford it. And with life insurance, many, many people pay in for a very long period of time and never actually collect. That makes sense. You're spreading the risk. Happens with life insurance, happens with homeowners insurance, and all of that. So the annuity is the opposite of that. So instead of the insurance company needing you to live as long as possible with life insurance and putting as much money in as possible, with the annuity, it's the reverse, meaning they want you to live as short as possible, because they're essentially paying you out of your own pocket over what they've deemed as your life expectancy. And the way that you get into the insurance company's pocket is if you live longer than they calculated that you would live. So their goal is to spend your principal down over time, meaning they never have to give you any of their money. And their risk, instead of you passing away early and them having to pay you, their risk is that you live too long and they have to pay you. With the fixed indexed annuity, your principal investment goes down over time as you're taking that guaranteed income, and they're betting you will pass away before your account value hits zero, because when it hits zero, then they have to, the guarantee is they have to keep paying you and then they're paying you out of your own pocket. So people ask questions like, well, how much is my guaranteed payout at 65 on one of these fixed index annuities if I take the income for life? You're going to get a set number. What is my guaranteed payout at 70? You're going to get a set number, but it's a higher number because your life expectancy is shorter. What is my guaranteed payout at 80? Well, it's a higher number because your life expectancy is shorter. They're just doing the math on how long are you likely to live and when will your account value hit zero, and how do we just pay you out of your own pocket hoping that the account value never hits zero. And that's the reality of how it works. Yes, it's more complicated than that, but if you look at the data and you look at the math, that's how it is. And I think if we're going to be really honest about how they work, you have to talk about what happens to your principal over time. If you have any questions about annuities, just reach out to us, any contract, what have you. We can help you with the right questions to ask so that you can make a more informed decision. Thank you for watching. Go to guardingyournestegg.com for your free and objective personal financial plan.